Hello, hello! Welcome back to Color Palettes with me, Lucy. Hi! This is a series where we pick up Minecraft block and come up with some color palettes and see what we can build with it. And these are all survival friendly, not using blocks that are extremely difficult to get in survival, and hopefully beginner friendly as well. This episode's block is Tuff, especially Tuff bricks and polished Tuff, which is new to the Minecraft 1.21 update, Tricky Trials, and it might be my favourite part of the update as a builder. We've had the original Tuff for quite a while and we will be using in today's episode because I think it's a bit of an underrated block in of itself. But the new bricks, polished and chiseled variants of Tuff are fantastic for building, especially because you have the slabs, the stairs and the walls of them as well. Now let's get into our very first color palette. This is a very simple, straightforward, almost monochrome palette that doesn't use a lot of colors but has a lot of visual interest from the texture of the blocks itself. And this is our color palette here. We have deep slate bricks, grey glazed terracotta, polished Tuff, chiseled Tuff, cyan terracotta and andesite. Now what you'll notice is the grey glazed terracotta and the chiseled Tuff have a lot of really interesting textures. The cyan terracotta meanwhile is a very plain texture which has a lot of contrast with these two blocks. And you have some highlighting blocks like andesite that can give a bit of pop of light to your build, and of course your deep slate for the darker colour. In today's episode we'll be testing out the colour palettes on this tower build I've done, and so you can see on a larger scale what the colour palette looks like. Now our palette number one is very grey, and if that's your kind of jam to go for monochrome, I think this is excellent. With the addition of Tuff bricks you do have a slight tint of sort of greenish blue in there. That's why this terracotta here really works well with it. The best part about this is the deep slate is very easy to find early game, as well as Tuff when you're caving, and the only blocks you really need to try for here are the terracottas, which hopefully wouldn't be too bad to get. And for any roofing or detailing, you do have slabs and stairs for Tuff, deep slate and andesite. In this instance I've used andesite and Tuff for a bit of colour on the roof. Color palette number 2 is very similar to our color palette number 1. We're sticking with the grey theme, but this time we're focusing on gradients. Now if you're not aware what a gradient is, it basically refers to a transition of one color to another, ideally as smooth as possible, and in this case you can see there's a very clear transition here from darker deep slate to the lighter stone with Tuff as an in-between block. This is great if you're new to gradating. It's a very simple transition to make, and the similar textures make this very easy. You got quite a few options here for texturing as well, because deep slate, Tuff and stone all have so many variants. Here's a texture and gradient I did, going from deep slate Tuff to stone, back to Tuff, back to deep slate. And my little trick here would definitely be to not only stick to stone bricks, but also just to use normal stone and some mossy stone bricks as well. Both of these blocks go really well with Tuff and break out the textures a bit. So if you want to keep things simple but play around with colours a little bit more than color palette number 1, I recommend you try color palette 2. This is a great set of basic building blocks, and really you can add any colours in the game to this and it will still match up with any of these blocks. Color palette number 3 is a bit of a jump in difficulty from 1 and 2, I do admit it, but I think it's a fun one. And you've got a whole another color here to play around with. Not only do you have the greys from the Tuff, but now you have the cyan turquoisey kind of color from the prismarine and the copper. Our blocks this time around are dark prismarine, oxidized cut copper or normal copper blocks, prismarine bricks, Tuff bricks, grey glazed terracotta, and sea lanterns. You get a lot of different colors here, and you could even add in warpwood like I did here with the door. You don't get as many texturing options for your dark prismarine and the glazed terracotta, but I think they do make a very rare color transition. I don't see many people using these colors at all, and it's very interesting, I think. Now you do get a lot of those cyan turquoisey tones here, so you can go to town with them. Whether you want to use those as an accent or you want to use the Tuff bricks as an accent, you can do either or you can kind of smash them together like I did here. For your roofing, you do have a lot of options with this color palette. Just have a look in here. You got warpwood, prismarine brick stairs, prismarine stairs. I'm not going to read them all out, but you have a lot of options for any sort of roofing or detailing work. If we take a very close look up here on the Tuff block texture, we've really been focusing on the sort of cool tones found here in the shadows, and the highlights here is sort of more of a bluey grain here. We do have another color in the block which makes it work with other things, which is this sort of creamy kind of color. It's actually just grey, but it kind of looks like a slightly pink tone of gray in the block here, and this color palette really focuses in on that little shade in the blocks. We're using a lot of sort of creamy reddish textures in here. So this palette is a little bit more expensive in survival, or it might not be feasible at all if you don't spawn in the right biome. You would need to have a coral reef nearby to be able to farm this well. But we do have this dead coral block, which goes really well with the Tuff texture, I think. You can substitute it for stone if you need it though. It still works, it just kind of lacks that little pink hue. And the rest of the blocks in the palette are acacia wood, light grey terracotta, white terracotta, and exposed cut copper. And this works really well in my opinion. You have this sort of pink and orangey shades coming from the wood and the coral blocks, which still match with the Tuff not too badly. And if you want an accent, you can use the white terracotta. The exposed copper works well if you have any roofing or detailing you need to do, because unfortunately these blocks do lack a stair variant. What you might notice across these 4 color palettes is we've been using Tuff as sort of a primary block here, the base color for all of the palettes. Well, we're going to be swapping gears a little bit more now and using it as an accent color instead. And color palette number 4 definitely has it as an accent because it contrasts extremely well with the pink and purple we've used in this palette. And our color palette this time around is cherry wood, crimson planks, nether bricks, blackstone, and Tuff. Now Tuff has got this slight green and blue tint to it, which really contrasts with the red and purple in these blocks, and you'll find that it really stands out not only because it's lighter than anything else, but also because of that green shade. Now this colour palette is a little bit more out there because you have the purple and pink hue, which is not for everybody, but you can reduce that to an accent colour and use blackstone instead. I think both of these have got a lot of potential being used as a primary colour. And for your roofing, you do get quite a few choices from blackstone, Tuff, and nether brick. And if you want a little bit more accent, you can add in the normal cherry planks. They still fit well, but they do stand out alongside the Tuff. And we're bringing it back to the basics a little bit more with this color palette number 6. Now what you can find is if you place any sort of wood like oak or birch or even jungle wood next to Tuff, it can kind of clash because these are normally more warm toned and Tuff is primarily cool toned. But you can go around this by using some slightly cooler tone wood we have in the game, which is mangrove wood and strip dark wood, as well as these strip spruce logs which have a bit of green in them. You can also find in the Tuff blocks. I think this color palette goes really well if you want a slightly warmer looking build, a little bit more cozy, but it's still a little bit more interesting than your standard sort of log cabin. It comes to no surprise that Tuff and copper blocks look great together. Because of trial chambers and how they were designed, the blocks are meant to complement each other, and you're going to need a lot of copper blocks for this color palette, so I recommend, don't mind for it, go and just tear out your nearest trial chamber instead. Just using Tuff and copper together might make your base look a little bit like a trial chamber, so if you're trying to avoid that look, I recommend you add these transition blocks. Now what you want to add in between your Tuff and your copper is some andesite and some granite. Although these blocks have got very different colours, they have a very similar texture if you use the polished variants, which makes transitioning between them very easy and it doesn't clash at all. And for a little bit more contrast to the copper, you can add acacia wood, and something I recommend if you can get enough of it is some blocks of raw copper. The green in here works well with the Tuff and obviously the other copper without you needing to actually dive into the oxidized copper variants of copper. Alright, that's all 7 of our color palettes covered here. Hopefully this has given you guys some ideas of what blocks you can use together with Tuff blocks. Let me know in the comments if there's a specific palette that you really liked, or if there's any other blocks you think I should cover. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great time building with the new Tuff blocks in the new update. Bye bye!